Why is this man built like a wall? What has this man been eating? He's bigger than Wonder Woman and Superman. Hey there, this is your Math Doodle to my Thomas Hands, Doodle here with another video, and today I'd like to talk about the absolute Batman, or as he's been rightfully named, the Batman who lifts. And I just want to say, I wasn't even sure if I was going to talk about this version of Batman. One, because the first issue has been out already for a bit, and I wasn't sure if there was too much to say on my end. But then when I saw the previews for issue 2 with that big, massive dump truck of a Batmobile, I was like, you know what? I have to talk about this yoked up Batman. I was one of the people that would be like so weirded out by this entire concept in general, saying that, oh, this is a world where everything is just terrible because it's dark side energy, basically. And how everything that makes these characters, it just goes away. With Batman being humongous, having a square symbol, I was like, oh, that is weird. And then when I heard that, oh, this version of Batman is actually not rich, doesn't have Alfred, and has a completely different origin, I got even more worried. And when they were coming out with, what Bruce Wayne's gonna look like with the shaved blonde hair, I was like, whoa, do not like this at all. But then it was revealed that was just a sketch of what he could look like. What he actually looks like is basically a yoked up Justin Bieber, basically, which I am not too mad because Bruce is very emo and he usually has hair like that. So that wasn't something I was worried about. But what got me a little bit more interested was the preview images they would bring out showing Batman's awesome fighting style and technique, and the fact that that square symbol is actually a battle axe that he hooks on this handle, and it was beautiful and like amazing. And it looked like from just the promotional images that his cape could move around and do stuff, and I was like, what is that? And that's what kind of hooked me on a little bit more. And then that actually leads me into the actual comic itself. And I kept hearing over and over how this comic was really good. And I was like, really? So I had to take a look. I wasn't sure what I was going to find because this is a whole new different version of Batman. But when I read it, I was so amazed. I was worried that they were going to fumble how this version of Batman is very different from other versions of Batman himself. But no, they actually did it in a way where it's really unique and really cool, because guess what? Everything that happened in this comic is not necessarily from Bruce Wayne's perspective. It's actually from Alfred, because that was something that was also changed for this version of the comic. Instead of being a butler for the Waynes, it seems like this version of Alfred did not leave MI6 at all and has kept being a spy and probably an assassin through his old age, to the point where it seems like he's estranged from his own daughter. And it's interesting because we see how he's interested in this version of Batman by explaining to us what makes this version of Batman so unique. Because it looks like this version of Batman is also a working class hero in this one. So it also is more realistic, and that means people can't just say that why can't Batman just use his money to make everything better? And this comic is basically saying he can't. He can only pay for what he needs, like all his Bat-related things, which I do like what he does later on, which I will explain in a bit. This version of Batman's origin is also very different, that instead of, the Waynes being killed in a mugging gone wrong, it's actually a little more real, if that makes sense. Not that muggings can't happen in the real world, but we have seen that in every media of Batman, so it's a nice change of pace. What it's going on is uncomfortably close to home with it being a public shooting instead of a isolated incident. But Bruce was a regular kid who was still really smart, so that part of Bruce Wayne stays, of him being a super genius. But his dad's a teacher, and they went to a zoo to, look at the animals. That was the prize, because Bruce literally made a device that was bad shape, which later is incorporated in his cape. That's kind of like a symbiotic type thing. It's meant for like something. I don't really know exactly. Even when I read it, I was still confused. But that was the prize, that they get to go to a zoo. And that kind of became Batman's kind of worst day, because it's kind of his fault in this one, as he thought in the mainline DC universe. Because what happens is a shootout happens. Thomas Wayne was trying to protect the kids that he's, teaching, and he locks them away. And what happens is he gets hit by the crossfire and dies in the zoo. And that's what makes, Batman's motivation happen. Because to him, it is technically his fault, because if it wasn't for his genius level intellect creating a device that allowed him to go to the zoo, his dad would have never died that day. And that's like, very interesting. But it showed, Bruce's genius level side, which I love that they kept. But also, it also seemed like throughout the years, Bruce was a bad kid, that he was really in a bad place, but something changed him to the point where, he's going to go back to, learning, getting stronger, doing things to get him to the goal to be Batman. And that's really cool, really interesting, because he had a scholarship to be a football player because of how yoked this Batman is, but he pretended to have an injury that he couldn't go anymore, mainly so he can get in shape for Batman. And he did all his, learning that, normal Batman does. But because this version of Batman does not have the money to basically go around the entire world, he had to basically learn at home, taking odd jobs everywhere to learn about a layout of Gotham and learning new skills about the way. I love that this version of Batman basically just took those odd jobs just to learn as much as he could. And that is actually really cool. And I love how Alfred is interested in Bruce Wayne's origin. But when it goes into the actual, Batman side of it, it seems like there's this new evil group called the Party Animals, which look like very weird versions of Black Mask. Like, I don't know if anyone really mentioned that at all, but they all look like, animal-themed Black Mask characters, if that makes sense. They seem to also change it up so much because it seems like the heads of these gang, which look horrible, by the way, with the big bulb and then just the jaw on the mask, was always so weird. But it looks like they changed something completely by getting rid of the Falcones and Maronis. So the Crime Lords are just gone, so it's just these party animals. Because it looks like in this version too, that Jim Gordon is actually the mayor already in this world, and that his daughter is kind of like a beat cop by what she's wearing. It looks like Bullock's still there, so that hasn't changed too much, besides, Jim being a mayor. But it looks like the party animals are there to kill everyone. And it also looks like they're just all psychopathic because they do not care about life by literally saying, hey, do you have any stories of like, oh, I have a family at home, I have children. They did not care. But I loved how Batman went down, like Spider-Man, to basically mention, hey, I'm going to take care of this. And that was really cool. And it's funny to see Batman do that because this version of Batman with his tech and, well, not really tech, but like his weapons, acts more like a bat, which is funny because of how big he is. Because he's underneath and, he takes out the party animals in the most fun way possible. And I love that technically this version of Batman is a lot more noisy for the sake to actually scare everyone, all his criminals. And it looks like his cape, like I said before, was that technology that he created when he was a kid in a cape format where it has like needles can come out, which I still don't know what this thing actually is, even though they kind of explained it, but I still don't understand it. And he uses like tendrils, like venom, to get all the villains. And he seems a little more brutal in this version of Batman, but in a fun way because he does kind of joke around. Because that promotional image that we saw of Batman creating an axe out of his chest, and the actual context of that is that, the bad guy was saying that he's killed somebody not so much with this butcher knife. And Batman basically just slices it off. And I'm like, oh my god, this Batman is, brutal. And for a long time, I thought that this Batman was a killer, so I was already kind of annoyed by that. But no, it looks like that this version of Batman is so smart that he actively avoids killing them. Like, yeah, he'll slash, break bones and organs, but not enough to kill them, as Alfred, who was, checking him out, was saying. Is also a really nice thing. But that chop to the hand was all real. But what I mean by this version of Batman being kind of jokey is it basically says, hey, there's a hospital there, and I hear that they can, retach them now. But I don't know which way it was. Was it over there or was it over there? You better be quick. So this Batman is brutal, but still, not a complete monster. But Batman basically takes out every one of the party animals, and it was so satisfying. Just for issue 1. Remember, all this was in issue 1, and it was done so well. When Batman was done with all the party animals, he had Alfred to deal with because, Alfred was going after Bruce in the first place. But it looked like Batman was way too fast. Again, for his big size, that is fantastic. He basically just pulls one on Alfred by taking his gun and booking it. So later on, it looks like Alfred finds where Bruce's hideout is, which is his own Batcave. But ironically, it's not in the ground in a cave. It's actually on top of one of the buildings that Batman, helps construct because he's a construction worker. But that's pretty empty because no one really used it. That's actually kind of smart. Instead of being on the ground, it's on top. It's cool seeing the differences. But Alfred finds him, and he's ready to kill him, but Batman's already ready for him. He uses Alfred's gun that he took from the last encounter and modifies it to shoot out little bats, which is actually cool, which kind of goes into this other thing where he kind of jacks Alfred's ride and takes it for himself. And I love it how Alfred is so pissed at him and annoyed, but also kind of amused that he was able to do all this stuff. And then it makes me think that maybe this version of Batman does not, create all his gadgets from scratch. It looks like this version of Batman takes and steals whatever he needs to become Batman, like he did with Alfred's gun and most likely his motorcycle that he took. And I actually really like that because this is a working class Batman. So that is very interesting on how this version of Batman is going to work. But Alfred is not going to let him, win. So he basically is going after, not Bruce, his mother, which in this one is still alive. So how is that dynamic going to change? Which then gets me more worried that maybe she is going to die. But that was Alfred's target to, lure out Batman. But he wants to see what this version of Batman is made out of. So that gives me a few theories on what's going to happen in the next few issues, which I'm not sure if I'm going to review or just make a dedicated video on the entire volume. But it makes me think that this version of Alfred is going to train Bruce Wayne, like kind of in the normal comics, because of his military training and wants to see what this Batman is capable of. Because we know that this version of Alfred is not completely heartless because he let Batman do his stuff to defeat all the party animals, even though he was ordered to stop Batman right there. But he let him, do his thing. So that's just my thoughts on the new Absolute Batman. I wasn't sure about it at all because of everything that was being promoted for it, which they are really bad at promoting it. That's what it felt like. But I find it really funny that it seems like the big two, Marvel and DC, are making their alternate universes be the big thing instead of the main universes they work with, which I find really funny. And the universes are also very different from each other. This gets me really interested on what else they're going to do with this version of Batman. What are they going to do with the changes? Are they going to get it closer in line to the regular comics with Alfred being a mentor to this version of Batman and, being his guy in a chair? And how would Bruce Wayne's mother go into this situation? Does she know? Does she not know? That's very interesting. How does Bruce deal with all his friends that are usually known as criminals? How would he deal with them? Will they turn into the characters that we know from the main comics, like Killer Croc and, Two-Face, the Penguin, and Catwoman? I'm not 100% sure. Then that leads me into the giant-ass Batmobile that they have there. How does this version of Batman, acquire something like that? People are saying that this is actually probably one of those, like, concrete movers. I think that's what they're called. But this version of Batman most likely stole it, which I explained that this Batman probably steals all his things that he needs because he's not wealthy. So what is this big dump truck gonna be for? Because that is not something you can just go on a highway and just, ride around. Does that thing take out more little Batmobiles? Like in Hot Wheels or something like that? I have no idea. This new comic universe has got me asking so many questions that gets me to want to read more. And I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to talk about each new issue individually, mainly because I originally was supposed to do that with the new Ultimate Spider-Man comics, but I kind of just lost interest in making the videos. Not because I stopped having interest in the comic itself, but I just didn't know what to say each issue except of just the new thing that was interesting, and then was it long enough to make an entire video on. So I'm not 100% sure what to talk about it. But if you like this video and you actually want to see me talk about each individual issue, you should let me know, because I do listen to all your opinions and your requests as long as they're respectful. But hey, if there's nothing else, this has been Doodlemite. I hope everyone stays nerdy, and I hope to see everyone in the next video. Bye.